Mr. Mali, Mr. Lakshminarayan, and so many friends of mine who are here, and dear brothers and sisters. Namaskarams to all. You know, when they came and discussed with me, I had quite a lot of things to tell them, which is far too heavy for the contemporary discourse. Today, you want things which will be useful for the day, tomorrow, day after. The world has got so short-termist in character. Previously, we used to think of a decade's growth. After 5 years, what will happen? Next year's situation. Everything got reduced to quarterly results. And now nations' moods are decided by overnight interest rates. You can understand the short-termist approach which is now sweeping the world. And this one of my studies, why China is rising and US is declining. In 2011, strategic thinkers in US began studying declinism of US. Declinism of US is because the US was a new country and succeeded. Had it been a country with baggages like us, like other countries, it would have faced the same problem which we are facing. It did not face any of those problems, so it created new problems for itself which it did not solve, and its problems it universalized for others also. So we are a country with a blackboard on which there is so many scribblings for the last 5,000 years. Some are good, some are bad, some are relevant, some are actually bad for today and tomorrow. You know, this kind of objective assessment about ourselves has been lacking so much in our society. And the most tragic thing is that we know very little about ourselves. This has been my finding in the last 40 years of my understanding of this country and the world from different perspectives. From business, of course, finance, and everything associated with that, corporate economics to national and global economics, journalism, politics, philosophy, social practices. From all perspectives, I had an opportunity to study. It is not by my own effort. It is from one accident to other which gave me access to knowledge about different dimensions of national and global life. You know, I will start with what was my experience in London in 1986. When I was a fairly well-known corporate advisor in India, and I had been invited by one of the most important NRIs at that time, Suraj Pal. He had called me for some discussions. So when I landed, of course, I had gone today to return with the business class ticket for tomorrow. I had only 1 day's discussion. So I was crossing the immigration. They asked, why have you come here for? I said, I have come because I am a consultant, corporate consultant. And I gave my credentials and also the invitation letter from Suraj Pal. And the fellows are standing there to receive me. Every Indian says this. Because that was my first understanding about how Indians are viewed by the white man. So, sir, I may be, but I am really going back. What is the guarantee you will go back? I said, I have my return ticket in British Airways, in business class. That's what everybody says. You can always come with the ticket. What are you saying? You mean to say I am going to stay here? That is the last desire I have, to leave my country and be here. Since you are so offensive to me, I am not going to enter your country. Please prepone my ticket and send me back. I was shocked. Because he has not seen any Indian responding like that. Then he didn't know what to do. He said, sir, I am sorry. I said, I want a written apology. I will not settle unless you give a written apology, because you have not defamed me, you have defamed my country. Of course, afterwards some discussion, some senior came, and I settled for an oral apology by the topmost person present there. This opened a new understanding about how others view us. This is a very important lesson. This is what opened me to think about the world, not from a very narrow perspective of business, profit, investment. Something far more is needed. So with this, I began studying very deeply about India, about the world, about the different economic, trade, commercial practices, and my ideas became more macro than micro. In fact, that was very helpful to me, even in my micro professional practice, because there is no divorce between the micro and the macro, so far as the intellectual understanding of what we are advising our client is concerned. It actually improved my standing with my client, because I was not talking only about one, I was talking about 10, and each had its importance about what we were discussing. So, my mind was open to challenges, issues, problems, which this country is facing, which this country is not handling, the media is not handling, the political leadership is not handling, intellectualism, academics, all have failed. This was the first understanding I had. In fact, this I have been writing, speaking. In fact, when I spoke in IIT in 2010, that's one of the speeches which, if you have time, you must listen. That was Shailendra Mehta Institute of Management. They had called me to deliver a lecture, and I delivered that lecture. Afterwards, all the students and the faculties came and said, "Sir, we know nothing about what you are talking." IIT, which is supposed to be the window of India to the world, and the world's perspective about India is being developed by such high-end educational institutions. They confessed they knew nothing about what I was saying about India, not in the context of philosophy, culture, in the context of economics, in the context of entrepreneurial development, in the context of how India is developing. They didn't even see the nexus between Indian development and India. They related it to FIIs putting money into India. That's how the entire American thinking failed in China, because they thought it was their money which was developing China. No, their money was developing China to develop in the Chinese way. But our intellectualism, our experts, our political thinkers, our bureaucrats, our economists, never thought we are developing because we have something in us. This, my perspective I acquired when I started traveling across the country. My first lesson was in Ludhiana, Batala, Rajkot, Jamnagar, Morbi, right down to Thoothukudi. I traveled 42 industrial clusters, and I found something very different happening in those places, which you will not find in economic time, or business line, or in the researches, or the studies about India. This is what I spoke in the IIT. They said, "Sir, we know nothing about these things." And so they asked me to conduct a course for them, which I did for 4 years. And I asked the IIT students only one thing: don't attend campus interview. This actually sapping your energy and buying you for money. You will be surprised. No, it was a fulfillment of my life. After 5 years, when I went to Indore, 2 young men came and touched my feet and said, "You advised us not to go for campus interviews. Today we are running a business, which is an improvement of their family business, which is a small trading business. Sir, we are running a company which employs 1,200 people. 2 young men. That is the potentiality of India, And I found in the course of my entire understanding about Indian economy, Indian industry, Indian commercial practices, entrepreneurship, that most of the employees in India are educated and most of the entrepreneurs are uneducated. You know Tirupur. Tirupur is probably the knitwear export capital of the world. Today their export almost touches $7 to $8 billion. 67% of the exporters are educated less than 10 standard. Only 7% are graduates. Out of the 5 top diamond exporters, 3 are educated only up to 5th standard. Your education has nothing to do with entrepreneurship. So from this perspective, I have to talk to you. This is the micro ground level study, but I have to take you to another level, helicopter view, and then bring you down to understand what institutions like MMA can do and should do. And if they fail to do, they will be only doing holding operations. There are 2 Indias in the perspective of the world and in our own perspective. I don't know how many of you heard about Max Weber. He is supposed to be the conceptualizer of the modern world. The modern West owes its entire philosophic and practical background to Max Weber. Max Weber said only if you have this Protestant Christian values, you can develop a market economy. And he was right, because all the Catholic nations were lagging behind and all the Protestant nations were moving up, even within Christendom. So he was right, because he had studied that society for 30 years. But he didn't study this society, our society, China and India, but he wrote a book, The Religion of Hinduism, and another book, Religion of Buddhism, and he said, these 2 societies will never come up in modern economy. Because they believe in karma and rebirth. You believe in karma and rebirth, you don't have the capacity to develop risk-bearing tendencies, you leave everything to fate. Such a superficial view of India. This is what Max Weber wrote. 1897 or 1900, he wrote this book, which was published in India somewhere in 1950s. And that became the Bible for the Indian sociologists, Indian development thinkers, Indian government, Indian policy makers. Before that, in 1853, Karl Marx wrote a couple of articles in New York Herald Review, which is now International Herald Tribune, in which he said, of course, India is some kind of a primitive socialist society, but this society has a very big problem, that it has not changed for the last 2000 years. Stagnant. What we call a stable, he called it a stagnant. And he said, this is a society which worships cows and monkeys. How can this semi-barbaric society develop? And he said the British are doing the right thing by destroying this society, its economy, its trade, its education. It's very painful. He quoted Goethe to say, it's a very painful destruction, but there is a pleasurable part of it also. That is how India would be prepared for revolution. Karl Marx and Max Weber were the intellectual masters of India, and in a sense for the world also. Then came, this is how these people cannot grow. One is you are disqualified for development. You are qualified for development only if you cease to be yourself. This is Karl Marx. So, India was growing at 3%, 2.5%, 4%. So, in 1978, Professor Raj Krishna, who was a socialist economic thinker and was an advisor to the government of India also, he was asked, sir, we are following the same socialist policies which the East European countries, which Russia, which other countries are following, But they are growing at 5%, 6%, 7%. We are growing only at 3%. Sir, what is the cost? He said, whatever policies you follow, we will have only Hindu rate of growth. That is how the word Hindu rate of growth came into our discourse. It has become part of our dictionary. It has become part of our psyche. It has become part of public discourse. It has become the brand of India. You know, Robert McNamara, this happened in 1978. Robert McNamara began begging the world, here is a society which is a burden on the world. I am begging for assistance for the poor people of India. Aid India Consortium was formed. This was the brand of India in 1980-81. This is the perspective which dominated us. This is how we understood India. It is not that it is how they understood India. This is how we began understanding India. This is one perspective of the West about India. And I am going to give you another perspective of the same West about India, that of scientists and historians. You will be amazed at the contrast. And how, sorry, because last minute I couldn't. I am talking about what scientists said about India. Not ordinary scientists. Nobel laureates. What did they say about India? Not now, in 1930s, in 1920s. After conversation about Indian philosophy, some of the ideas of quantum physics that seemed so crazy suddenly made much more sense. Werner Heisenberg, Nobel Science Prize winner. Some blood transfusion from the east to the west is a must to save the Western science. Vedanta teaches that consciousness is singular. All happenings are played out in one universal consciousness and there is no multiplicity of self. Erwin Schrödinger, astrophysicist, the father of quantum physics, Nobel Prize winner for innovation in wave mechanics. In all the world, there is no kind of framework within which we can find consciousness in the plural. This is simply something which we construct because of the temporal plurality of individuals. But this is a false construction. There is only one solution to this conflict so far as any is available to all of us, and that lies in the ancient wisdom of Upanishad. Schrödinger. I go into Upanishads to ask questions. Niels Bohr, the Bohr model of atom inventor, nuclear physicist, Nobel Prize winner for physics in 1922. Vedanta and Sankhya hold the key to the laws of mind and thought process which are correlated in the quantum field. That is the operation and distribution of particles at an atomic and molecular levels. Brian David Josephson, Welsh physicist, the youngest Nobel laureate. I can keep on quoting. You must have heard about Robert Oppenheimer, who was the father of the atom bomb. He must have been wandering around Chennai some time back in search of truth. These are all the people who spoke about India. And then I will quote you what two greatest historians spoke about India. It is true, that is Will Durant. He stated it in 1935. It is true that even across the human barrier, India has sent to us such questionable gifts as grammar and logic, philosophy and fables, hypnotism and chess, and above all the numerals and our decimal system. But these are not the essentials of our spirit. But they are trifles compared to what we can learn from her in future. Perhaps in turn for the conquest, arrogance and spoliation. India will teach us the tolerance of the gentleness of mind, the quiet content of the acquisitive soul, the calmness of understanding spirit, and unifying and pacifying love of all living things. Love of all living things is important because I am going to demonstrate to you You will be amazed. The Indian government was shocked when certain things were told to them. That's what I'm going to tell you at the end. Then Toynbee. It is already becoming clear that a chapter which had Western beginnings will have to have an Indian ending if it is not to end in destruction of the human race. At this supremely dangerous moment in human history, the only way of salvation is the ancient Hindu way, and we have an attitude and spirit that can make it possible for the human race to grow into a single family. This is another perspective which we do not even know. It is the sociologists and economists who presented India in such a manner that no Indian will feel proud and every Indian will feel ashamed. Scientists and historians who are not contextualized. A historian is not contextualized by today. He sees it from a perspective of 200 years back and 100 years forward. Their perspective is different. They see India as guiding the world. The scientists say that things which are not clear to science is clear in the ancient Vedas and Upanishads. This our students have not heard, our academics have not heard, our policymakers have not heard, the media doesn't know, certainly not MMA. Unless you understand it, how do you understand India? Now, I will take you to where we are talking about world order. Where did this world order begin? Order means there is a system, there is a leader, there is a governance model, there are rules and regulations, behavioral, then punishment, there is an institution. All this was conceived after the Second World War. The United Nations was constituted. The undeclared and later declared leader of this whole order was US. It's important to know that the report of the expert committee, this is the source of all the problems of India and all the non-Western nations. What I am going to read out to you. This is clearly the encapsulation and formalization of what Karl Marx and Max Weber said. This is a report of the expert committee of United Nations measures for the development of underdeveloped nations. Of course, a huge document, and if you read more, you will be so pained. So I am reading out the least painful part, but the most instructive part of the report. There is a sense in which rapid economic progress is impossible without painful adjustments. Ancient philosophies have to be scrapped, precisely what Max Weber said. Precisely what Karl Marx said. Old social institutions have to disintegrate. I will explain the meaning of it. There should be no relationship of any kind. We should all become atomized individuals bound only by contract, law, courts, government. This is Western anthropological modernity. Bonds of caste, creed and race have to burst. And then comes the warning. And large number of persons who cannot keep up with progress have to have their expectations of a comfortable life frustrated. Very few communities are willing to pay the price for rapid economic progress. This was a global advisory for all developed nations. Our IAS officers, our IFS officers, our academic institutions, our academics, our media were evangelized into this. If you are what you are, you can never develop. You have to cease to be what you are to develop. This has been ingrained into the Indian psyche, Indian public discourse. And I will relate to you as you are getting released from this psychological bond we are developing. It is not that we are developing and so we are giving it up. Actually, India is moving away from this kind of intellectually oppressive thoughts. That is what I am going to tell you now. So we followed the sociologists and economists, and we ignored historians and scientists, and thought that we were semi-barbaric race, we have to be turned into modern nation by Western understanding of ourselves. This is how we began to perceive ourselves. This was 1951. 1990, at least they told us this is how you develop. In 1990, when globalization came, we accepted, yes, you are right. Our own entire country, why? The entire world accepted the West is the best, because Francis Fukuyama wrote a book. That book was called The End of History and the Lost Man. And that is supposed to be the Bible of globalization. He said that finally the West has won against the rest. The liberal democracy and market capitalism have become the final victors, and it is the best for the rest to follow the West as the best. That was the simple formulation he made. The whole world accepted it. And the West itself began believing it. The problem is, when you begin believing you are the victor and all of us are losers, there's something seriously wrong with you in history. There is no perpetual victor in history, is what history teaches the whole world. The West believed it has become final victor. And I don't want to go more into how they began to feel that they are much more powerful, modern, intellectual, and military power. And they began extending the NATO, and see what happened today. You may be surprised to know Russia is on the verge of victory in Ukraine. Whole world was lured into believing Western way is the best way, and the West itself began declaring it's a what man he essential. Is it this all foolish? Because civilizational consciousness is so deep in human mind and in DNA, there will be civilizational clashes in the world. You cannot ignore it, and that was Samuel Huntington. He was dismissed, pilloried. He was called as someone who will destroy the liberal world. But when the 2001 terror attack took place, everybody silently accepted that there is something of Huntington in the global strategic discourse. Because I am part of a huge strategic community at the head. Of course, I was introduced as the vice chairman of Vivekananda International Foundation. That was till 2018. Afterwards, I became the chairman. So I deal with the strategic community at various levels, global level, local level. So how the global strategic thinking shifts from time to time, I am very familiar with. So this clash between globalization and civilizational rise has been going on without the world noticing it, and certainly we did not notice it. And in 2008, when the financial collapse took place, then everyone in the West knew the Western financial model is not sustainable. But they cannot say it, because if they say it, it will collapse tomorrow. Keep the show going. I will give you evidence of it. In end June 1989, The Economist magazine came out with a cover story. The modern economics is melting away. What's wrong with economics? You must read the editorial. It said that economists became more powerful than politicians, and Alan Greenspan, if he died today, he must be still put on the US Federal Reserve chief's chair with dark glasses so that no one knows he is a dead figure sitting there, because he is so important for the world. He ruled the world for 20 years. No American president ruled for more than 8 years. US Federal Reserve was the most permanent institution which decided the fate of all economies. In fact, when Alan Greenspan said in 1993 that Japanese economy is showing irrational exuberance, the Japanese stock market fell by 3%. That was the towering influence they controlled the world. After 2008, it became to this one-size-fits-all model was openly questioned in the 2008. I'm going to give you 3-4 dates. In 2005, the G20 met in Beijing, where for the first time, because of China's influence, because China was rising, and China could not be ignored in 2005, China said that every country will have to have its own development model. There cannot be a universal one-size-fits-all model. It became the official resolution of the finance ministers and central bank governors of G20 nations in 2005. I don't think our newspapers even published it. In 2008, the World Bank said in its newsletter that we were the ones who believed that the whole world can be corrected on the basis of one-size-fits-all model. We have learned the hard way that it's not workable. Each country will have to work out its own model. And then came in 2010, the United Nations, and then 2013 and 2014, the UNGA also discussed, and they said this one-size-fits-all model should be thrown over lock, stock and barrel. Not a single word in Indian media, Indian public discourse, among Indian academics. Certainly not the government. It was only in 2015, on the 2nd of January 2015, when the Niti Aayog was created, the Prime Minister insisted on putting 4 sentences. He said, we will follow only what works in and for India. You can see this quote is a beautiful resolution. I don't know whether Niti Aayog read it. Second was that we need a Bharatiya model for development. I don't think this was even discussed in India, not even criticized. They ignored. Why I am saying this is that this one-size-fits-all model has been consigned in macroeconomics, in finance, certainly in politics. The West used to criticize us that you are not a liberal economy. You are a liberal democracy. You are a third-rate democracy. But they found that liberal democracy constitutes only 12% of the global population. So they are holding India's hands so that democracies can reach a respectable figure of 30%. The world needs India. They were certifying, rating our economies, that they were rating the economy and our security. So, with the rise of Asia and later the rise of India, for reasons the West is not fathoming even today. Why is India rising? They don't know. They are certainly clear it is not because of FII flow. There is something more to it. So, in this situation, the declinism of America and of the West, coupled with the rise of Asia, this created a new debate, which I mentioned to Mali, that the world began understanding the difference between what is market economics and market society. This is one of the things all of you must begin discoursing, because it is very important for macroeconomics as well as for corporate economics. Market economics is that market goods are bought and sold, services, price is determined, interest rates are determined somewhere. But in market society, that happens inside the house. Human beings become merely playthings. In fact, beautiful explanations are given as to what is a market society. That you lend your forehead for 1 month to be painted by Coca-Cola, for which you will get $1,200. But if you permanently make it a mark, you will get $25,000. You will wear this and go around. People are willing to it. This is market society. Human beings losing everything just in pursuit of money and pleasure. They said Asia is rising because it is not a market society. West is declining because it has become a market society. Family is destroyed, community is destroyed, relationship is destroyed, which I will go into later. So, this was understood, and it is in this context, between 2020 and now, how the whole world order is standing on its head. When the, supply chains, I used to discuss with my friends who were in government, even in UPA time, some of the good friends. In fact, I had very fruitful interaction with even Pranab Mukherjee at that time. It was very difficult for him even to meet me. We met secretly. So, I said the way we are going about this global supply chain, all this is not going to work unless you have a global government, global army, global leader. It's not possible, it's not going to work. Let the whole world, and certainly not India, get adjusted to global supply chain. I was the lone dissenter. In fact, in 1995, when I addressed the Administrative Staff College of India in Hyderabad, when I was explaining how globalization is not sustainable, one person stood up and said, people like you must be shot dead because you are taking the country 500 years back. That is the extent of pressure of public opinion that has been built by such intense evangelization. In 200 years, mercantile capitalism was finished. In 100 years, communism is finished. In 100 years, capitalism is finished. In 50 years, communism is finished. In 25 years, globalization is over. The shelf life of all the ideas which governed the world have crashed. Because they were all based on one size and the Western leadership dominating the world. And that came to be completely questioned in 2020. When the pandemic came, no one knew how to handle it. No one ever thought India would handle it. There were estimates. Some 30 crore people will be infected and 3 crore people will die in 1 year. All over the world. In our own country. But we decided no. We will make our vaccine. Everybody thought Narendra Modi was a madman. But we have the capacity. He understood that the country has the capacity. With the result, when we came out with our vaccine, we even supplied vaccine to the world. The world looked at India. It had nothing to do with the FII investment, understand? It has nothing to do with the FDI. It had nothing to do with your English education. It had nothing to do with the media. It had to do with the potentiality of Indians. Day and night people worked. And the Prime Minister was on phone with them. Do it, do it, do it. This is faith plus promotion. It's changing the perception of the world about India. And not so much about India in the mind of the Indians itself. No. This, don't go for the vaccine. This is the kind of political propaganda which was going on. Even BJP vaccine would have been more acceptable. They called it Modi vaccine. Such negativity had come into our public discourse. The world understood that something is happening in India. Something very different is happening in India. At that time, the man who fashioned the world order, Henry Kissinger, he wrote a 625-word article in his blog, in which he said the world order will change forever. There is no other explanation. This was like an Upanishad statement. world was shaken. The man who conceptualized, constructed, built, and evangelized even China into that world order said the world order will change forever. Then everybody began discussing, world order will change, world order will change. Because the core of the American success was to turn China into a dirty factory of the world. Put so much money in China that Chinese will become prosperous. And a prosperous society will never accept communism. You see, it is like touching the nose from behind. And this is a great intellectual exercise that was started in 1993, if I remember right, in Bill Clinton's regime. When Bill Clinton began engaging China after the Tiananmen Square attack without any kind of remorse from China. It raised a Frankenstein monster and kept it at our border. We have 5,000 kilometers border with us. If America had 5,000 kilometers border with China, would have taken that risk. If America had 500 kilometers border with Afghanistan, with Pakistan, would they take that risk? 6,000 miles away. You are so safe. And you lay the rules for the rest to follow. Please understand how much intellectual inadequacy we must have had, not understanding the geographical, political, geopolitical, economic, technological, educational difference between America and the rest of the world and us. In 2022, when Russia attacked Ukraine, the world did not know what's happening. And Russia thought it is a 1-month game. We will wipe out. They made initial mistakes, but they could not but have done it. If they had not attacked Ukraine, in 10 years there will be no Russia. No country can take that. Even American strategic thinkers accepted. Even Kissinger said this is not a risk that Russia could have accepted. You are expanding NATO into the stomach of Russia. At that time, the Prime Minister did not have much time to decide. Maybe he had a couple of hours to decide. To stand neutral between Russia and America, which means favoring Russia. America even thought of sanctions. America will immediately think of sanctions only. In 1998 they did. And there is a beautiful scholarly work done by Australian think tank. Every sanction has been a failure in the world, except that it is a propaganda. In fact, when the sanctions took place, Abdul Kalam told me, "So, Gurumurthy, please see this sanction continue for another 4-5 years. DRDO will develop even further." Please, sir, sanctions it is the intellectuals who feel sanctions are bad. Scientists do not. Politicians fear. Technocrats do not. So America even thought of sanctions. But if the Prime Minister had not taken, or India had not taken the decision, the oil prices would have hit 150, 160, 200. When India took the decision, the entire oil-producing countries felt that we should not get into the game of high oil prices, because unreasonable oil prices will destroy the oil-producing countries themselves in future, because they want to move out of oil production in the next 5 years, in the next 50 years, because of environmental consideration. They don't consider oil as a permanent thing, and the unreasonable rise in oil prices is going to make them think twice. And so what happened? Oil prices went up to 120. It began crashing. And it is now normal. And we are buying oil from Russia, refining it and exporting it to Europe. So it is washed, the sins of Russian oil are washed in the Ganges of the Indian refinery. America doesn't know what to do. This is the change in the world order. The world order is that there is no hegemonic power today. The Center for Foresight of the European Union, it's a very important study. You can go to the European Union website and see how the world order is changing. It is called Center for Foresight. It says that in the next 5 years, all middle powers will rise. By 2030, there will be no hegemonic power. This is the shift in the world order. And now what is happening in India? India too has changed. When India exploded the Pokhran atom bomb, everybody thought, what's happening in India? Bill Clinton said, a country of Gandhi and Buddha have done this. We were always the Gandhi, land of Buddha and Gandhi. How did it reach us? The moment we exploded the Pokhran atom bomb, the world began to deal with us, negotiate with us, engage with us. The world respects power. The Indians did not understand because we had always a civilizational conflict between power and our value. This is happening from Vedic days. And it is only Chanakya who shifted it. It's a huge topic. I don't want to impose you on this. And you will be surprised to know that it is in Pakistan government's website containing the history and culture of Pakistan. I read the interaction between Alexander and Kautilya. How Kautilya's mind changed. He was teaching in Takshashila University. And when he found that there will be unreasonable adharmic wars, people with big armies will conquer us, we need a stable army, we need a stable government, we need resources, he began conceiving a state. And he shifted the mind of India from merely defensive posturing to offensive posturing. And we built 800 years, we built big empires. And then came one thinker by name Banabhatta. Kautilya, they say, is from Kerala. This Banabhatta is from Bihar, the same place from where Buddha originated. And he said this fellow is an adharmi. He is promoting what is known as acquisitive war. That's not our war system. Our war is that we should not conquer others, we should not destroy others, we should, even if we conquer and win, we'll have to hand over the kingdom back to the defeated person. This is our dharma. And he is now destroying all this and creating violence in the society. You know what happened? The entire Arthashastra books disappeared all over India and only one copy escaped in Tanjore. And that was handed over to Mysore Maharaja Library in 1907. And that was translated into English in 1913. And that is what we have today. And because we delegitimized Kautilya, in 500 years we lost our entire freedom. This is how the Indian mind always was in conflict between how to handle power. If you create power, it will not, even now, in many families, they won't keep weapons. Don't keep weapons, because in a move, you may use them. But in America, 33 crore Americans have 39 crore guns. You can understand. What can happen to that society on that basis? So, India changed in 1998, 2014, and now everyone says India has changed. The world has changed. India has changed. But what is its impact on Indian businessmen, Indian entrepreneurs, academics, professionals, and managers? Unless you view it in this perspective, that is why I went to Kew in a helicopter travel. And I have come to what we as people operating specific areas should do. First, we must know about India. Most people do not know about India. And this is like, Newton's falling apple facts not being noticed. In fact, when I was talking to the Prime Minister, that is how in Georgia, I also said to the lecture which I delivered on the basis to the Niti Ayog, I will capture it in 2-3 minutes. And then I will tell you, that will open your mind about what is India in the current context, and how it is going to be the solution for the world in future. Now, the India landscape is just 2.4% of the global land area. This is also we have 18% of world's human population, 30% of world's bovine population, 40% of world's cattle population, 8% of birds and animals, and we have 21% forest coverage. You tell this, the world will be shaken. Our bovine population is 535 million. And that of America, 89 million. That of China, 19 million. Only Brazil comes somewhere half of us, 235 million. You know why? It is because we use our agricultural land for crop production. We have world's agricultural land, this entire space. Only 10.3% is farmland. Out of which 2.4% is used, less than 1/4 is used for crop production. The balance is used for meat production. Crops give you 83% of the calorie value, and meat gives only 17% of the calorie value. And crop gives 37% of the, all this I explained to the Prime Minister. Crop gives 63% of the protein value, and meat gives 37%. Meat to crop, CO2 gas emission, if crop emits 1% CO2, meat extraction is 10 to 100%. In fact, in the Paris Earth Summit, they wanted 1 day meat-free holiday to be declared. That would have been a solution for the world's environmental problems, global warming problem. Now nobody talks about environment or ecology. Nobody even talks about global warming. They are all talking about 1.5 degrees. It is all reduced, like economics has been reduced to econometrics. Now it has been reduced to a degree. Nobody talks about environment because the West cannot talk about environment at all. The amount of CO2 gas emission they have pumped in the last 300 years is 90%. This is a permanent damage. CO2 gas emission is a permanent damage to the atmosphere. 90% of the CO2 gas emission they have been put into the atmosphere is by the Western model of development. Having done that, they say we are going back. So this is the environmental debate in which it's all supply side discourse. I am going to talk about the demand side, the lifestyle. So now, because of this, we are able to feed 140 million people with 1% of global land area, because we are able to extract 83% of the calories, 37% of the protein from that. And our meat consumption is 3.1 kg per head per annum. America's is 124. That of Europe is something like 110 or 120. South Africa, 180. Japan, which was having as close to us in 1950, because of the Western culture, their meat consumption has shot up to 49 kg, almost equal in China. A month back, a well-known ecologist gave an interview in Times of India. I don't know whether you read it. First page flap, half flap. World is being warmed up by everybody. The only country which is mitigating it is India through vegetarianism. It's not that we don't eat non-vegetarian. We eat non-vegetarian, but it's a sabji for us. Our food habits have been conceived like this. Is it by accident? It is by a philosophy. It is by a working model. It is not that non-vegetarians are bad. There is a stage at which people even give up non-vegetarian. For example, people do not eat non-vegetarian on Ekadashi or Amavasya or Friday or Saturday. These are all restraint on us that we should not kill for pleasure. With the result, India has been able to maintain its population by a cultured food habit. This was the position even in 1960 when we did not have, you go into statistics, an amazing revelation, that in 1960s when we did not have food, cattle population kept rising. We never thought it only for eating. So, when we said one earth, one family, and when Arnold Toynbee said that it is for all the living beings, there is an environmentally compatible lifestyle. This is what the Prime Minister's G20 message. Of course, it's much more, to tell you simply, if all Americans shift to if all Indians shift to McDonald's and burger, you know what is the calculation? We will need 6 times the agricultural land we have. We will need 2.5 times the size of India. If the whole world shifts to the American way of eating, we will need 40% more agricultural land than the world has. If the world shifts to the Indian way of eating, it will need only 40% of the agricultural land it uses. If you want to get all this data, you can access ourworldindata.com. So we have a model for the world, for the future. Unless we understand it, what will you think about India? India is a country of future, not for itself, for the whole world. Environmental paradigm is now sweeping the world. And the only answer is through lifestyle. It cannot be through controlling how much power you produce and how much fossil fuel you use. Unless you create a restrained lifestyle for which there is a working model, it is not in libraries or in dead books. Living model. You know, this culture prevails. You know what is the meat consumption in Bangladesh? You will be surprised. It's 100%, almost 100% Muslim country. 94% or so. Same as India. Culture is the same. But we don't want to even talk about it. How damaged is our intellect? How much deficit is there in our public discourse? So first, know something about India. Now more specifically, we have to think as Indians. At least now let us begin thinking about Indians, because Indians are respected everywhere. Because you are not respected there, you are not respecting yourself, you are not respecting the country, you are not respecting your forefathers, you are not respecting your philosophy. Now the reverse is happening. So as I mentioned, we are a market economy and not a market society, and I have advised many corporates that in India, buying is not an individual decision, it's a family decision. There are many researches about it. The family collectively decides, it orders. It is not that an individual may buy some pen or something like that, but when it comes to a substantial buying, it's a market economy and not a market society. There is a difference between the two. For example, take Indian lifestyle. We have 4.9 persons per household in India. In America, it is 2.5. In America, it was 3 in 1960. It has come down to 2.5. The result of this reduction in 5 is construction of 35 million more houses at a cost of $8.5 trillion. I am not going into the environmental cost. In India, if the number of persons reduced from 4.9 to 2.5, we will need 135 million more houses. There will be no place in India. Accommodating others, relation-based lifestyle, taking care of elders, taking care of infirm people. This has nothing to do with economics, gentlemen. This has nothing to do with law. This has nothing to do with Indian laws. In India, there is no law requiring you to take care of your family, parents. But it is happening. Because it is happening, our economy is functioning. And in America, they handed over the responsibilities of maintaining the parents, the grandparents, people who are dependent on them. They have been given to the care of the state. Even the children are not educated. If a child is there with the father beyond the age of 14, are you still with your father? It's a humiliation to be with the parent. That is the extent to which relationships have been destroyed. With the result, America went on the paradigm of universal social security. The universal social security was initially giving money, and now there is more withdrawals because the baby boomers have lost. America is not replacing its population. With the result, more withdrawals are there. The deficit started in 2006, and now they say the present value of the future social security is $72 trillion. Which is 3 times the American GDP. But in India, it is so culturally arranged that 90% of the parents are being taken care of, except 10% who have gone abroad, they have not taken care of their parents. There is a social overseeing. A man will not be respected if he doesn't take care of the parents. This is the impact of culture and society on economics, on macroeconomics. If all Indians, yearning Indians, decide to disown their responsibilities to their parents, to the near and dear, 60-70 crore Indians will be standing before the government of India for 2 square meals a day, where there will be government or public order or economics or market or stock market. This is a model for the world. It is because we are not a contract-based society. Now we are reducing everything into a contract. Marriage has been reduced into a contract. Father and son relationship is a contract. With the neighbors, you have a moral obligation. In 1994 in Chennai, one of my friends, he was driving to State Bank of India. He had a meeting to settle some of his problems. But the neighbor's wife came and said, my husband is having chest pain, he has to be taken to the hospital. He just went in, put the man, went to the hospital. His bank appointment went up in smoke. 5 years the man suffered. So once I was discussing with him, I asked him, what do you feel about that incident? Guru, I can tell you one thing. If I had gone for the bank appointment, if something had happened to that man, I would never have lived in peace throughout my life. That is India. In America, nobody will bother about it. In America, if a person dies, the husband dies, or the wife dies, or father dies, or till the mortuary van comes, you will be sitting with a dead body alone. But in India, for a marriage, you have got to go and invite people to come. For death, they have to come themselves. You know what is the philosophy? To share your sorrow, others have to come uninvited. To share your pleasure, you have to go and invite people. This is how this society is built. So this is contract-based society versus relation-based society. This has a huge impact on your own company. I have advised many corporates that you must build a relation-based culture even at the cost of efficiency. Efficiency will give you immediate returns. Loyalty will give you long-term returns. So I have told them that the promoter should go to the top vertical managers' houses at least once a year. See what is happening. He may have a spastic child. And he wears pack coat and all that. He comes and sits in the meeting. He doesn't know what is working in his mind. You don't know. You don't know the man. You know only his dress. And the vertical manager should go to 10 people below them. The whole organization must be linked by personal touch. There will be no attrition at higher level. Once you know your self-manager has this problem, the way you look at him will be very different. This is relation-based study. You have to apply the Western model of HR to suit Indian conditions. I'm not saying you should not have contracts, but we don't function only on contracts. How many of you as managers has decided to sack a person only on contract? We don't. But we don't legitimize it. Third thing is, one of the most important things that is happening, I have pleaded with CII, Assocham, FICCI, and I have told Molly also. In fact, the CII people came and sat with me. I said there is complete divergence between agency capitalism of the West and the promoter capitalism of India. I'm putting it for shorter words, I'm using simple sentences. Agency capitalism means the shareholders are represented by agents, funds and things like that. And the company is managed by agents who are CEOs. Both sides, one doesn't own capital, the other doesn't represent the capital. With results, huge amount of frauds, all these things is happening because nobody has any stake. This is lack of shareholder oversight, is what this is. For shareholders oversight, they have conceived the governance norms. We have copied it. But here there is shareholder oversight, the promoter oversight is there. The government has 100 provisions on your neck, which is not there in America. Government has no role. Government can order investigation, they can sack you, they can appoint government directors. How can you transplant the same corporate governance model in India? I pleaded with chartered accountants. Everyone does the copy pasting of template pasting of what is happening in SEC in India, and it is endlessly happening. No one is raising the voice. I have made at least 10 important notes and given to all these people. Nothing is happening. So, there is no double agency capitalism in India. There is a owner having capital. 97.5% of the Indian corporates are family managed. And your entire management education system is against family management. And these are the people to work under people who are promoter-led company, in promoter-led company. See how much the manager is thinking he is a fool because he is having shares. He is sitting over me. This is the psychology with which he is handling the promoter. Why don't we come to terms with the Indian reality? So, our economy is promoter-led. Their economy is promoter-less. A paradigm difference. But that is not reflected in your capital, in your SEBI rules. Or even, when Yashwant Sinha was piloting that independent directors, there are the 5-6 pages of what should be the qualification. I said these are the qualifications which is needed for a realized soul, not for independent directors. What is it you are doing? You are idealizing a business which is not ideal. Robust thinking is needed in the corporate sector, in management institute, in professional institutes, on all these important areas. We need to study every aspect in which we deal with the world with Indian perspective. It is very important because the world would like to know how Indian corporates function. Just when Japan began succeeding, the West went and saw what is the model. They said total quality management. It became a total model. We should expound our global models. Why in TVS there is no attrition? It's also inefficient. Why in Tata's it is not there? But it is not there in General Motors. What's the difference? We have to expound the Indian ingredient. Otherwise, I told Mali, we will be doing holding operation. Thank you very much.